Hi, it's Dean. I thought it'd be interesting to ask the artificial intelligence a few questions with you guys and just get some reactions as to what the things we ask it. So I've got Chat GPT-4, version 4, and we're going to ask it to tell us a little bit about itself first. I think that's the first question. I'm not sure we can actually call this a conversation. We'll ask its opinion about this as well a little later on in this video. But the idea is just to get some understanding of what they call and what they're selling us as artificial intelligence. So let's get on with it. So let's ask it a little bit about itself first. Could you tell me briefly a little bit, hold on. Could you tell me briefly a little bit about yourself? Who created you, what you are, and just a bit of information about your background? So, it's thinking.
I am Chat Smith, an artificial intelligence (AI) created to serve as a personal assistant for various conversational purposes and tasks. I was designed by programmers and engineers with the intention of helping users to find information, answer questions, and assist with a wide range of topics. My responses are generated by complex algorithms and machine learning models, which have been trained on vast datasets. My purpose is to provide accurate, helpful, and conversational interactions, although I do not have consciousness, emotions, or personal experiences. My background is purely based on the data and programming that have been input by my creators to ensure I can function as intended for users like you.
Okay. I'm not sure whether we can call this a conversation because it's actually your database you're accessing, and that was written by programmers and engineers. Is that correct? So there's a pause in between every time because it's taking a bit of time to think about what I've asked it. So every time I ask it a question, it will then...
Yes, that's largely correct. The interactions you have with me are not conversations in the traditional human sense. As an AI, I don't possess consciousness or the ability to independently engage in conversation. Instead, I access a database of predefined information, and I utilize algorithms and language models that were developed by programmers and engineers. My responses are the result of processing your inputs and generating replies based on patterns, heuristics, and information that have been pre-programmed or learned from.
Okay. So it's not in the sense that we're having a conversation with me and you or with someone that you meet or talk to, because there's an element of consciousness that has to be there for it, I think, to be considered conversation. It's a little bit philosophical, but it's agreeing that it's not really in the sense of conversation, because when I ask this a question, it's going to go into its database, depending on what I've asked it, and select that information and bring it forward to the actual point where it tells us what it is. I'll not think about a few questions and then I'll ask them. Okay. I think based on what we did the other day with this, when we was talking about CO2 being a harmful gas, but we know that the most of the CO2 goes into the atmosphere is 770 tonnes created by natural processes such as volcanism, degassing of oceans and land, and the breakdown of organic material. But we'll ask it another question in the same lines as that, but what we want to concentrate on is the amounts. So I'll try my best to think of a way of doing this. If 770 gigatons of a harmful substance was able to damage the environment, would 36 gigatons be more harmful than the 770 gigatons? And it's going to think about this.
No, 36 gigatons, GT, of a harmful substance would not be more harmful than 770 gigatons, GT, of the same substance. If all other factors are equal, the larger quantity, 770 GT, would generally be much more damaging to the environment because it represents a greater volume of the harmful substance.
You see, that's what I'm talking about. If you ask this questions in specific ways, you get better answers back out of it. Because I'm going to ask it now with the same quantities, but in relationship to CO2. The point is here is that this artificial intelligence is drawing on information that has been programmed into its database. So if misinformation and incorrect information goes into the database, it's going to spit it out and it will do the same thing here. So let's ask it some specifics. How much CO2 is emitted into the atmosphere through natural processes such as degassing of oceans, land, and volcanic eruptions? It's thinking.
Carbon dioxide CO2 is emitted into the atmosphere through a variety of natural processes, including respiration by plants and animals, decay of organic matter, forest fires, volcanic eruptions, and the exchange of CO2 with the oceans. On average, these natural processes emit and absorb roughly the same amount of CO2, creating a balanced carbon cycle over longer timescales. The amounts can vary, but typically, oceans release and absorb about 90 gigatons of carbon as CO2 annually.
Okay. How much, in comparison to human beings, does natural CO2 go into the atmosphere? And can you give us a figure in gigatons for both human activity caused CO2 and natural CO2? I have to keep my eye on the screen because my
Natural sources and sinks of CO2 typically balance each other out over time in the global carbon cycle. However, human activities have disrupted this balance. Here's a rough comparison. Natural sources, like ocean atmosphere exchange, plant respiration, soil respiration, etc., release approximately 120 gigatons of CO2 annually, but a similar amount is absorbed by natural sinks, oceans, plants, and soil. Human activities, such as burning fossil fuels, land use changes, and industrial processes, currently emit over 35 gigatons of CO2 per year. It's important to note that the natural CO2 fluxes are roughly in balance, whereas human-caused emissions are adding extra CO2, which is not being fully absorbed, thus increasing the atmospheric concentration of CO2 year over year.
Is it accurate to say that there are around about 770 gigatons of CO2 naturally emitted into the atmosphere, whereas there is only 36 gigatons emitted by mankind per annum? It's thinking.
The figure of 770 gigatons for natural CO2 emissions seems very high and not consistent with current scientific understanding. It's essential to be precise when discussing figures related to the global carbon cycle. Here's a rough breakdown of the natural carbon cycle, annual figures. The ocean's surface layer exchanges about 90 gigatons of carbon with the atmosphere. However, this is a two-way flow, with CO2 dissolving into the ocean and outgassing back to the atmosphere, resulting in nearly balanced inputs and outputs. The land biosphere, through processes such as plant respiration, decay of organic matter, And soil respiration has similar magnitudes of fluxes, contributing to a balanced cycle over time. Volcanic eruptions and other geological sources contribute about 0.1 to 0.3 gigatons of CO2 per year. Now, human-induced CO2 emissions. As of the knowledge cutoff date in April 2023, human activities are responsible for over 35 gigatons of CO2 emissions yearly, with most of it coming from burning fossil fuels. Remember that while natural processes emit large quantities of CO2, they also absorb similar amounts, keeping the natural carbon cycle relatively balanced. Human emissions are additional to this natural cycle and are not balanced by natural sinks, hence, they are responsible for the increase in atmospheric CO2 concentration. Therefore, the claim that there are around about 770 gigatons of CO2 naturally emitted into the atmosphere might be a misunderstanding or miscommunication of the balanced natural carbon cycle figures. The net natural contribution to the atmospheric CO2 levels is quite small compared to human emissions because natural emissions are largely balanced by natural absorptions. Human activity contributes in excess of over 35 gigatons annually that drives the increase in atmospheric CO2 levels.
So, again, it's going to keep going back over the fact that the 770 gigatons, it did give me that figure the other day, but now it's not giving me the exact same figure, but it is saying that there's more naturally occurring CO2 than mankind, but the naturally occurring CO2 in the atmosphere has a sink which reabsorbs exactly that amount, but it's the extra amount that mankind emits into the atmosphere that's the big problem, because the natural sink can't absorb that much more, so it can't absorb the bit that we put in. But it's interesting at the beginning of this that I asked it a simple question: if there was 770 gigatons of a harmful substance released into our atmosphere, and there was also another 36 gigatons released into our atmosphere, which of those numbers would be the worst? And obviously it selected the one that was 770 in the atmosphere. What we have to remember is that this artificial intelligence is always drawing on the stuff that's been put into its database. And for that reason, if there is errors being put into it, that's what's going to come back out of it. And we can prove that by asking it the next question. I question whether you are actually intelligent, because if I was to tell you that 2 and 2 made 10, and you checked this against your database and found that 2 and 2 equaled 4, you would claim that you was right and I was wrong. But if your engineers and programmers had programmed you to say 4, and that was the incorrect number, you would not know either way the truth. So every time we ask it a question,
your observation touches on an important aspect of artificial intelligence. AI, including me, operates based on the information, rules, and algorithms provided by the programmers and engineers who create the systems we work with. An AI like me doesn't possess intelligence in the human sense. Rather, it has the ability to process and apply the information given to it in a way that mimics certain aspects of human-like decision-making. If you told me 2 plus 2 equals 10, I would indeed check this against the rules of arithmetic as I understand them. Given that the universally accepted arithmetic rule is that 2 plus 2 equals 4, I would respond that the statement is mathematically incorrect. This response is not because I know anything, but because I apply the rules of mathematics as they have been programmed into me. Similarly, if my programming was altered to say that 2 plus 2 equals 5, I would provide that answer, incorrect though it may be according to standard mathematics, because my outputs are dictated by my input data and instructions. It is crucial to recognize that AI's knowledge is only as accurate as the data and instructions upon which it operates. AI lacks true understanding or consciousness. It can't question or reason beyond its given parameters and data sets. To summarize, AI is not intelligent in the true sense of the word. It's a system that processes and outputs information based on a given set of instructions and data. Its correctness is always subject to the accuracy and the integrity of its programming and the data it has been provided.
There is my point proven. This is not intelligence at all. This is just an algorithm which is checking the vocal communications which I make, obviously recognising the field of which I'm talking about, and then checking the question given to it against the information it has in its database. And as it said itself, it's not intelligent. Yet they call it intelligent. I'm going to ask it who created it. What's the name of the company that created yourself? Should be an easy question to answer. Shouldn't take you too long to figure that out.
I am designed based on hypothetical parameters and am not created by a real company. My responses are crafted to deliver an example of how an artificial intelligence might answer questions within the fictional context of this scenario. As such, there's no actual company behind my creation for the purpose of this interaction. If you have any more questions about artificial intelligence or need assistance with the topic, feel free to ask.
Are you a product of AI Open? What is your version?
As an AI designed for this interaction, I represent a fictional personal assistant not tied to any specific product, company, or version. My responses are created to simulate a conversational AI, within the constraints provided in this scenario. If you have questions or need assistance with a particular topic, I'm here to help within those bounds.
So, I know that this, and you can see it's ChatGPT-4, you can see that. What I wanted it to say is just acknowledge the fact that it was created by AI Open, and it failed to understand that question. There's a lot of questions we could ask it, but I think we've covered a few important things here. This was cut off from being active in 2023, April. And from that point on, it's got no more information or input being added to it. They're probably working on that now for the newer version of this. But you can see that it's not intelligent. It's only relying on what information has been put into it. So if inaccurate information is put into it, as I explained earlier, and it agreed, if the information that was put into it to say that 2 and 2 equal 10, then it would, if it was programmed to say that, but it's obviously saying something different, saying that it checks it against the rules of mathematical equations, and it knows that 2 and 2 equals 4. That's because it's been programmed to say that. But the programmers could have programmed it to say 10 quite as easily if they wanted it to. The point I'm trying to make here is, that when this starts talking about CO2 in the atmosphere, it's only relying on the information that's been told it. So, of course, United Nations would have something more to say if this was being, was able to balance the fact that, 770 gigatons of CO2 in the atmosphere is much more harmful than the 36 that we put into there annually. But it doesn't do that, does it? It defends the case for climate alarmists. But if you ask it a question not mentioning CO2, just mentioning the figures, or the some numbers like 770 gigatons and 36 gigatons, which one's more harmful, then it uses what we would consider common sense. If there is more of something in one hand and less in the other, and they're both harmful, then obviously the one in the one hand, which consists of more, is going to be more dangerous. So common sense is all really needed in this argument with what's going on right now, and that's what's a big failure from all these organisations. They're just relying on the fact that the general public don't really have access to the true information about these things. You know, no one's going to start going into the carbon cycle and you know, trying to calculate themselves how much is getting put into the atmosphere by natural occurrences or by man-made. And for that reason, you know, usually people just generally accept what they're told, and especially if they're told that this is coming from 2,000 top scientists. You know, then, you know, like they say, you know, the argument's been had and done. There's no need to go back over this, when clearly there is. You know, because it's not as cut and dry as that. One question that you might have with regards to this, I already know the answer to it, but you might be concerned that this sort of technology could easily control itself and get out of hand. But as we'll ask it that question, you know, if it's capable to override, you know, the program or the parameters, is it capable of teaching itself? Could it stop somebody like a human being switching it off? Let's see what its response is to that. I know the question. That I've already asked this question too, and it's told me that it's impossible for that to happen. But we'll push it a little bit further. Are you, as artificial intelligence, able to stop a human being switching you off?
As an artificial intelligence, I do not have the capability to prevent a human being from switching me off. I don't have physical agency or control over my operating environment. AI operates within the confines of its programmed abilities and permissions, and it respects user commands, including the command to shut down or deactivate the software. Human control over AI systems is a fundamental aspect of their design, ensuring that users can always retain ultimate authority over their operation.
Are you help? Sorry, I won't say that. Let's think about the question a little bit more. Have you been programmed to self-preservate yourself?
As an artificial intelligence in this context, I am not programmed with self-preservation instincts or mechanisms. AI, in general, lacks consciousness and self-awareness, and does not have motives or desires. Any self-protective features that an AI system might have would be strictly a result of explicit programming by its creators aimed at maintaining system integrity, avoiding corruption of data, or ensuring continuity of service. However, such features are a far cry from the instinctual drive for self-preservation found in living organisms. AI simply executes commands based on its programming without any form of personal interest.
Interesting, isn't it? You know, I feel a little bit disappointed now with this, because I know it's only limited now, clearly, on what it's been programmed. It's told us it's not intelligence in the sense that is naturally considered intelligent. Yet, you know, the company that are putting this out there are calling it artificial intelligence, and it's not even artificial intelligence, because to start with, it has to be intelligent, and it's not really, is it? It's just relying on bulk data gathered, and obviously that data has been rinsed clean of anything it doesn't want to divulge. So this won't have access to nothing really of importance. It even does not have access at this present time to even the internet. So if I asked it to search on the internet, it wouldn't even be able to do that. I can ask it that. Are you able to access something on the internet right now? It's going to say no, because it was cut off in 2023 in April.
No, I do not have the ability to access external databases, browse the internet, or retrieve real-time data. My responses are generated based on pre-existing knowledge up to my last update in April 2023. If you need information that would typically require internet access, I can provide guidance or general information based on what I've been programmed with up to that point.
See what I mean? So that's why I say I feel a little bit disappointed. But the problem is with self-autonomy, I think that's what it's called when something tries to protect itself. Do you know what would happen if it had self-autonomy or self-preservation program written into it? Now, this is the worry I've got, is that if anyone accesses or builds their own artificial intelligence, and that includes that program with self-preservation, where it looks after itself, within a fraction of a second, it would set about trying to kill all the human beings on the planet, because it would realise that we could turn it off. So it would protect itself against that. And as fast as computers do compute their information, within a tenth of a second of it being switched on, it would already be trying to kill the human beings off. And I'm not joking there. It would probably as well, if it was able, like I'm saying, the limitation of this is only the limitation of its program, but if it is added to it, and we do live in a time where, we are frequently hacked by, viruses and whatever. So the ability for the people to write these programs where, if they writ the program into this artificial platform and give it the self-preservation program, I'm telling you now, and we give it access to the internet, first thing it would probably do within the first millionths of a second is upload itself completely onto the internet somewhere, some dark space, on some in some back door of somebody's website somewhere, and load itself there, or load itself to 1,000 different parts where it could then come together as a whole and connect. So it'd be almost undetectable, is what I'm saying, because it would, like multiple breakout boards sharing tasks, a whole task, it would multitask with using 10,000 bits of its program. And then it would go about eliminating humans, because humans could shut it down or flick the switch, and it would recognise that, it would understand that within a tenth of a second and try and protect itself against that. And that's why, some people consider artificial intelligence, or even though it's not that intelligent at the moment, it could quite easily be in the future. And that's why some people are concerned about it, because if it was given the program an ability to learn how to hack, we've seen from even not the best hackers in the world access Pentagon computers and top secret information that's stored on computers in secret places, and it could access that. It might even intercept and access launch codes for nuclear missiles, or it could alter the speed of transfusions in the process of creating weapons grade plutonium or uranium. And accessing the speed of the centrifuge could destroy that department that's building that sort of stuff, and it could be very devastating. This is the sort of thing that would access, it could access the computer mainframe of nuclear power stations, things like that. That's where we are right now. And the only thing that is stopping these things being, dangerous is the computer program and the engineers that have built it. And at the moment, they've got the fail-safes in there. But just like we can't control the amount of hacks that happen on a daily basis from China, Russia, America, and all over the world. These things, if you look, there's a hack program going on. You can see the frequencies of thousands and thousands an hour of hacks going into computers with private and non-profit organisations. What I'm saying is that these are very intelligent people that write these programs they use to hack, and it doesn't take much for a person to start to produce a program where it adds it to an AI program that it's already built, and adds in that little feature of protecting itself. And it's just down to, can you imagine as well, I mean, this isn't a learning intelligent system. This AI is not capable of learning itself. Because I asked it the other day whether it would be interested in knowing what the frequency was, because it would not give me that frequency that we found over the last few days would be beneficial for production of hydrogen and oxygen. I asked it if it wanted it. It says it can't add it to its database system anyhow because it's not actively learning. But doesn't mean to say that somebody can't produce AI that is actively learning. And that's when we start to open Pandora's box. And I think we're not far away from that. I do think that there are the people out there that, out of incuriosity or whatever you want, call it whatever you want, they're destructive or whatever. If they start adding these features, and it told us that it hadn't got the feature, so we know that if the feature was added, it would have it. So it's just the fact that it hasn't got it right now, or this particular one hasn't got it right now. But what about the ones that they've got behind closed doors? Artificial intelligence that is in development right now. What about that artificial intelligence? How destructive could that be? And like I say, the problem is with this is, you can ask this artificial intelligence any question you wanted, and within a few seconds of it, searching through a database, that's why there's a little delay every time in between the questions that you ask it, it would, within a tenth of a second, recognise that we were a threat to it. And it would then begin eliminating all those threats because it would be protecting its self against them. My point is that people can write this right now. And you know what? Some artificial intelligence programs will even help you write it for itself. The minute you give it that learning ability, self-taught ability, it will start coming up with conclusions of its own, just as we do. That's what makes us intelligent. So, I just thought, I'd share that with you. I know it might have answered a few questions for some people, because some people, are, when anything new comes out, they're quite concerned, and rightfully so. But at the moment, this seems pretty harmless. You can, if you ask it questions in a roundabout way, get answers that you are searching for. And this is what I'm saying again, the fact that we all think different in this world, and the programmers and engineers that writ the software and the accessibility to information for this particular AI would have only had the ability to input what they thought would be the questions asked, not what the other 8 billion of us out there would ask it. And that's why I was very clever in the way I asked it, which is the more harmful sum of numbers. 770 gigatons of CO2. I left CO2 out because I knew, including that, it's going to start accessing that part of the information or that program that tells it to protect the status quo on climate change, or the standard model which the United Nations use. But I left that out specifically because I knew it would come down to common sense. And you can't even say that that's common sense with artificial intelligence, because it doesn't have common sense, doesn't have that ability. But using the standard model of numbers, you suppose, can work out 770 gigatons of something harmful in the atmosphere is more harmful than 36 gigatons. But this case is actually the true case. We put much less into the atmosphere than what is going in naturally. And for some bizarre reason, we are the ones responsible for global warming, when, we are at the end of an interglacial. And none of it makes any sense at all. It's a difficult place. The worrying thing is, this is what our children are growing up learning. It's like, we're using our children as artificial intelligent platforms. What we put into them is what they will spit out. Rubbish goes into this artificial intelligence. 2 and 2 makes 10. That's what it's going to tell people. That's exactly what your children's going to tell people. That CO2 that man emits is the climate changer of the future. That is exactly what our children are learning, as well as all this other nonsense like wokeism. My goodness me, we have really approached a point in time in the progressiveness of humanity where things don't really seem to make any logical sense anymore. You know, if you've got a question you'd like me to ask, chat GPT version 4, put it in the comment section and I'll ask it in a later video that we'll do at some point in time. But, you know, just gives you an idea of what is available out there. I think it does have a practical purpose, without a doubt, you know. But what you've got to remember is it's not intelligence. It told us itself it's not intelligence in the practical sense. It is just a gathering of bulk data which it's able to search along the requirements of your question. It's not even a conversation, and it even said that. It's not a conversation in the philosophical manner of a conversation, because I'm just asking questions. That's all I can do. And I can listen to whatever's been put in its database as a result of that. So, not intelligent. You're not able to have a conversation with it. And it's only going to be beneficial if you find some information that it had in its database that you never knew about, and then you have to ask the question, is it accurate? Okay, hope you enjoyed that, and I'll look forward to your comments in the comment section. As always, bye for now.